Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Shamplina from Landlords. I'm pleased to welcome Richard from Alphaletz.
Hello, everybody.
Alphaletz are our property management software partner at Landlords. What we wanted to talk to you today on today's webinar is the Renters Reform Bill, which is some of the biggest changes that are going to affect the private rental sector in the last 30 years. It's hard keeping up abreast with being a landlord and knowing what you've got to do and how you need to do it. So we're going to run through the potential changes that are going to be happening in the white paper. We believe that the draft bill is going to come out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then, of course, it's got to go through Parliament. We're going to go through the 12 points, aren't we, Richard?
We are.
And at the end of this webinar, we're going to give you Richard's email address, and he will be able to answer all your questions relating to the Renters Reform Bill and obviously being a landlord with regard to his property software. So you're going to have a lot of emails.
That's all right.
I'm just pre-warning you. You're going to have a lot of homework. So let me come to the next slide. Give us some background, Richard Jackson, of how you became a landlord.
Okay. Hello, everybody. And really excited to be here, by the way, today. Okay. It's really fantastic. I think it's one of the best webinars, or the biggest attended webinars we've done for a long time. So Alphaletz is a technology platform. We're not a letting agent. A lot of people think because Alphaletz, there is an Alphaletz with an S on the end, which is a letting agent, but that's nothing to do with us. Right. Different company. We're a technology company, and we are designed to save landlords loads of time and money. That's our objective. And also the other thing I've been working hard on is creating a community of landlords. So we have thousands of landlords now in our community, and we do stuff like this. We do free webinars. We have loads of free resources. In fact, I've got some to give away in this presentation, so stay tuned for that. And we're trying to educate and get people up to speed. My background is that I'm also a portfolio landlord. I've been a landlord for over 30 years. At the age of 23, I had 3 properties, so I got into it very early.
You don't have any grey hairs,
I have a few. You have to look hard.
It might be your software.
I have to look a bit hard. Yeah. But I learned, there's a right way and a wrong way to do property. And I learned definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way. But that's how I got into property. And also I spent a lot of time in software. My day job, as well as doing property, was software. So I had 9 years in Silicon Valley, which I loved, and in California. That was a great experience. Right. So my 2 loves are, well, apart from my wife and kids and stuff, my 2 loves are property and software. So Alphaletz was a great opportunity to bring all this together and help other landlords too.
But what was the defining moment of why you set up Alphaletz? Because normally, I remember when I set up Landlord Action 23 years ago, I set up because I wanted to help landlords and offer fixed fees for gaining possession, because I thought that solicitors that charge too much money. Yeah. So a little bit of a disruptor. What was your defining moment? Why you set?
It's a great question, and same thing happened to me. So those years ago when I started out, like everyone else, I had a spreadsheet, and it was easy. There wasn't really that much to do as a landlord. It was a great business, pretty simple. And then I'd say in the last 3 or 4 years, I've never seen as much change being a landlord as there is now. I mean, and it's still coming. I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to you guys today about the Reform Bill. And I just realized, so what I did was I started off with my spreadsheet, then I created a database, then I created a file management system. And
were you fully managing? Were you fully managing when you were living in America?
I had both, actually. Right. Yeah, so I was fully managing, but I also used letting agents, because a lot of people think just because you use a letting agent, you don't need software. Well, actually, I disagree with that. I think if you use a letting agent, you're still responsible for keeping good records, keeping the tenant communication and stuff like that. I know fully management, they offer extras as well. But I just want to complete, and I know a lot of landlords, we are a bit control freakish. We want to keep all our stuff. And so I just realized that, cloud computing was really coming of age, and people seeing the benefits of that.
Yeah.
Mobile apps, open banking was coming along. Banking. So all these things were converging together, and it just seemed the perfect time to do something in property. And I think property technology has been in the dark ages for a long, long time, and it's been quite ignored, but I think now finally it's coming of age. So
and I mean, obviously, someone that's been in the industry a long time, and you go to lots of shows, that there's a lot of property technology companies out there that have had major investment by venture capitalists.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been offered lots of money to do.
Have you?
We
Didn't
have
tell me that when you came in.
but we're trying not to do that.
Right, so you've self-funded.
We're self-funded, pretty much.
Okay.
We've got lots of people. We've even got some customers that have invested in Halve as well. Yeah, which has been great.
Okay. Well, we can talk about the platform a little bit later on, which is really important.
Yeah.
I think anything that makes a landlord more professional, more compliant, and more efficient, and of course saves them money, is a complete no-brainer. So that's what I want to make sure that there's always good remedies there for landlords, keeping up to date with what
especially
they do.
now, because it's obviously we've got the changes with rents reform, but we've got interest rates going up, and we've got all these other things happening as well.
I mean, I'm going to talk some stats actually. We were at the Landlord Investment Show last week, which was a great show, and it was really, really busy. Where the market is at the moment, I think, I think if we're honest, and you've been a landlord for a long time, I'm a landlord as well, is landlords historically do have short memories.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously we've had zero interest rates for a long time.
Absolutely.
We've been really, really lucky. And then of course Liz Truss came in and she copped it all up, didn't she? And then the interest rates went through the roof. But obviously we've had Section 24, 2017, which has been a real killer. By all accounts, I think the Treasury have brought in income about £3 billion by all accounts. So I can't see them dropping that, and I hope they do drop it. And that needs some severe campaigning, but I can't see that. There's the additional 3% stamp duty. Of course, you've got the EPC changes coming in. We can touch on that later on. That's not part of the Renters Reform Bill, which we're going to go through. And then, of course, there's all the other changes. So the game has changed dramatically the last 5 years, 10 years as being a landlord. Self-management is more difficult than ever before. Thus, that's why you need to have good processes, systems, and platforms in place, most definitely. So, obviously, you've got resources that help landlords with their daily management of their property. We're going to go into more detail, and I know you've got some QR codes to help that. But obviously, we've got some stats here, and I've got some stats. I mean, actually, in cash investors went up to 67% from 43% in 2022. If you speak to a lot of landlords, still lots of landlords want to buy property. Okay, I think now the reality is that you are getting sellers, you are getting vendors that are being a bit more realistic. So landlords looking to sell their property will take 85% below market value rather than 95 and 100% 6 months ago. So I think there's reality
when you
there.
say cash buy, you mean buying
outright
no
cash,
mortgage.
correct. And obviously there's a lot of those buyers still out there. Lenders are stress testing more than ever before. So they are stress testing not just on your liability with regard to tax, but also with if the rate goes up. So obviously you're looking now rates of what's happened 5.5%, which have been, people have been on trackers for 1.5%. It's a big gap. It's a killer. And of course, out of all of this, the losers, the biggest losers are tenants, because rents naturally are going up, and there's only so much you can pass on. But some stats that we've got is, as of 2017, there was 2.88 million landlords. 2019, 2.66. So they're saying that there has been landlords leaving the market. As of the NLLA, they've actually said that in 2 years, 220,000 landlords have exited the marketplace. But also, I read a stat that Granger, who are the biggest private landlord in the UK, have predicted that we will go from 4.7 million dwellings to 7.2 million household dwellings in 2025. So they think the market's going to grow, because there's a lot of funds getting in.
There is, and that's exactly what we're seeing, actually. We're seeing the smaller landlords dropping out of the market because it's too difficult. You've got 1 or 2 properties, you've probably got a full-time job, you might have a young family, you've got enough on your plate. And with all this change, it's like, I don't need it. Whereas the bigger the landlords who do it for a living, or the bigger landlords, are actually thriving. They're building, they're seeing opportunities to buy below market value. They see rents going up, and they understand that there's still a big opportunity. So I agree with those. I think there's going to be more big players coming into the market to expand portfolios. And I think that's exactly what's now. I think the smaller landlords will find it more difficult, and the bigger landlords will thrive. Right.
And I've spoken to a few people, a few funds, and they've really got the appetite, and they're looking, and their brief is the 7 to 8 to 10% yields if they can still get it on the growth. Not so much net. and they're being realistic with that. But obviously, I think the biggest challenge, obviously more recent than last month, has obviously been mortgage rates.
And also, we should remember, a lot of people like to rent. You know, there's always this thing about it's not fair on pickers that want to buy, but not everybody wants. I've been a tenant, I've been a landlord, and I quite like the flexibility.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's a really good point, Richard, because there is the flexibility.
Yeah.
There's also tenants that want to buy a property.
Yeah.
I mean, the average deposit now is £43,000.
Yeah.
The first time buyer average is 34 years old. And actually, the average term of a tenancy, as of the English Housing Survey, which they've just done a report, and I would recommend, if some landlords have got time, to read the latest report on the English Housing Survey, which has literally just come out on the latest stats. But they say an average term for a tenant staying in a property now is 4.4 years. It was 4.2 years. But the reality now is we know landlords are looking to exit the market. We're going to talk about Section 21, obviously, one of the things. But what is alarming for tenants, which has gone up, is 38% of a tenant's income goes towards rent. And of course, we are in a cost of living crisis, and I think it will get worse, unfortunately.
Do you think that's the same for your average house owner? Because with mortgage going up, do you have a stat on?
Yeah, I do actually. I think the average. I think the stat was something like it was 18% of income on a house owner compared to the social. I mean, the worst is obviously the private rental sector.
Yeah.
But obviously, rates have gone up for mortgage owners, and everyone is feeling the pinch, and landlords, tenants, and homeowners.
Yeah.
So obviously, we've got these stats here. The private rental sector, it stands at about 20%. That's correct. I remember doing a podcast in this room here at HF Towers with Zoopla, and what we have a problem is the rental stock crisis at the moment, where lots of tenants have been fighting. It's leveled out a little bit. Rents have eased up a bit, but it was getting absolutely crazy. And I spoke to one agent. He had 43 applicants for one property. But actually, good news for you landlords out there, we've got 383 of you online, so thank you very much for joining us, is that the pool of tenants now that you're going to get is better than ever before, because you can get more tenants. Qualifying a tenant is a must, obviously. Then you've got some stuff on that, and you've got some really good software and referencing and so forth. But then you can find the best free tenants, and then you are still getting tenants that are actually trying to do a little mini auction to try and win the property. So you're getting better tenants, you're getting less void periods. So that's good news for landlords, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I had exactly that situation. I had a tenant who I ended up with about 5 or 6, all wanted the property. I promised one person they could have it, so that was all done. And then when the references came back, they filled the references. So I had to go back. I went back to the other people, and then this little bidding war started, and I ended up with £200 or £300 above what I'd advertised.
Amazing. I mean, they're desperate. I mean, but don't forget, 95% of tenants out there are decent tenants, and landlords do great jobs, and your tenants are customers. But the problem you've also got is that as you said, those smaller landlords that are looking to exit, their biggest challenge, obviously, their capital gains bills, naturally, is that the good tenants that have, I mean, historically, up until the point of when the rates went up, Richard, landlords don't really put rates, they don't really put rents up. Historically, people think,
these tenant.
It's really, really, I mean, I've had a tenant for ages and I only put the rent up once in 5 years. It's the old saying, the devil you know, and no news is good news. You know, they're in there, they're looking after. As long as they give you access, which is a problem, obviously, for a lot of landlords, and looking after the property.
Well, one thing I always put in my tenancy agreements is that there will be an annual cost of living increase.
Right, okay.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it. You know, I mean, at the end of the year, I might say, well, it's been a tough year, then we won't do it. But at least there's an expectation there so that the tenants know that it will be going up. And then you don't get this shock that we've seen now where 5 years, 10 years later, even I've reached some cases where they suddenly put the rent up 50% to bring it in line with the market.
I know. And then, it's way too much. I think it's an issue because if you think about the workforce that we're in, you know, we're an employer. We've got 240 staff here at Hamilton Fraser. You know, we talk on the board about staffing, the cost of living crisis, and it is really tough.
It is,
It is really tough. You think about what inflation's now; it's creeped down to about 9%. It was up to 11. Wage growth, you know, expectations 4 to 6% rise. Half the workforce aren't even getting a rise and stuff, and it's tough.
It is,
you know. So, I mean, the other day I couldn't believe it. I was with a client. I had to go on a 2.5 mile journey from King's Cross to northwest London, and it was when the tube strike was off. And I got an Uber. It was 36 quid.
Yeah, it's gone mad.
Shocking.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely shocking.
Yeah,
but anyway, enough about Ubers and so forth. Let's move on into this. So let's talk about. I'm going to go for the 12-point plan.
Did you pick up that last point about the housing benefit, by the way?
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
No, when we were, this is one of my slides actually. I checked it with Paul. And everything. But something that really stuck out to me was that 26% of tenants receive some form of housing benefit.
Yeah.
I was staggered by that.
Well, yeah. Don't forget there could be a working benefit. So it doesn't mean they're not working. So people will be on lower income and it will boost up their part housing benefit, and that happens on that.
But it's leading into the Renters Reform Bill because they don't want people to. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But,
I mean, the problem we've got is LHA rates are frozen until April 2024.
Yes,
which is terrible. And I work with some organisations like Elliott Lee and Capital Letters that deal with social housing, and they house a lot of social tenants. And actually, statistically, they say a housing benefit tenant will look after property and stay there longer. Right, I've heard that before.
Is the benefit still paid to the tenant?
Well, that's the problem as well, and that's what's a turn off for the landlord, because of course one of the worst rules that came in. I mean, obviously, I think the argument could be Section 24 was one of the worst rules that ever came in for a lot of landlords. But one of the worst laws that came in was in 2008, which was where the Labour government wanted direct payment to go directly to the tenant.
Yes,
because they wanted to empower the tenant. And I broke a story in the Sunday Mail, with Sebastian O'Kelly saying it's going to be complete carnage, and it was, because there's a lot of benefit tenants that unfortunately can't manage their money.
Yes.
So when they get their biggest payment that comes in, they have other debt and they need to pay stuff, and unfortunately the money gets taken out and it doesn't get passed on to the landlord, which makes themselves go into arrears and becomes. Most tenants will say just pay it directly.
And then landlords said, right, I'm not going to rent to local housing authority.
Exactly, and then there's one other landlord that doesn't want to rent to a housing benefit. The problem that you've got now with social tenants is because the LHA rate is low, but private rents have gone up. I come to you, and of course, we have about discrimination as part of the 12-point plan. The reality is, in commercial terms, Richard, if I came to you and I was a benefit tenant, and you've got 4, 5, 6 other tenants that are working, professional, and they're paying 300-400 quid a month, and you're going to get direct payment. Who are you going to go for? And that's that's not discrimination. That's just commerce, isn't it? Exactly. So the 12-point plan. So where we're at is in the next 2 to 3 weeks, the draft bill is going to come through. Some of this might fall off. Some of it may not fall off. Section 21 being abolished, that is going to definitely come in. Okay. Obviously improving the court proceedings, earlier possession, rent increases, obviously strengthening the grounds for Section 8, more mandatory grounds, obviously quality improvement. You can't advertise saying you can't have any children moving to property or housing benefit tenants. We're going to have a new property portal. We're going to go into more details on this, obviously, during this webinar, where obviously the property is registered. You have a unique URL number, and with that will be registered in EPC, gas safety, land registry, your deposits, so that property is fully compliant.
And it's important, by the way, to say that is not to replace what we do.
No. This is a national. This is a national portal. So that's only going to assist. So mostly, if you're a landlord, you're looking to buy something at auction, or the tenants wants to hand money over because they've come across lots of ghost landlords that happened before, or they want to know the property is up to spec and it complies. There is an argument to say, well, actually, if you bring this in, do you need licensing? And there's an argument you don't need that, because obviously,
is it like a sort of property passport then?
Well, the property, the property passport, and then obviously the property deposit passport. That's been talked about, and obviously we own my deposits here. We protect over 1.1 billion pounds worth of deposits of my deposits. That the deposit moves with the tenant, so they're talking about that. It's about affordability, strengthening council powers to have more enforcement. The tenant can have a request that they can have a pet in the property. Now, I'm all for this. I've got a dog, and and I think pets are really good for a tenant's mental health, especially coming through COVID. You've seen our 2 pets outside. Hamilton and Fraser on multi-blues. But actually, you're not going to bring a big Alsatian or a big husky in a 1-bed flat in a block. That's unreasonable. And of course, you had leases.
I've had that. I've had requests, and normally I'm absolutely fine with it. I've got a garden flat, so it makes sense. But I've also got a flat on the 5th floor.
Right.
And one of the tenants asked if they could have a pet. I've never had a pet in this one before.
Was it a goldfish, was it?
It wasn't a goldfish. It was.
Would you supposed to be? You'd allow a goldfish, wouldn't you?
It was a goldfish about this big and hairy. Yeah. And they asked if they could have one pet in, and I made a mistake, and I should have said no because it was a top floor flat.
What was the pet?
It was a dog.
Yeah.
And when I got in there, when they left, I found out there were actually 3 dogs in it, and they never took it downstairs not enough. They weren't quick enough getting the dog outside.
So there was dog poo everywhere.
So it was just stank.
Yeah, I know. We've seen it all.
I mean, example.
Yeah, and obviously I've seen some terrible properties in my life.
Yeah,
you can imagine.
Yeah,
I remember once I did. I'm allergic to cats.
Right.
And I did some filming with Nightmare Tenants. It was, I can't remember what series. I've done 6 series. I can't remember which one. It was in Rushton, near Northamptonshire, and the guy had 13 cats.
Yeah.
And you went in, and I was just wheezing, and it was horrendous. Yeah. And of course, we deal with end of deposit disputes as well.
Yeah.
With regard to this law that's coming in, which are saying, right, the tenant can say to you, I want to bring a pet in. You have to give a reasonable reason. So that was a reason with 5th floor, and it was a tiny flat.
Yeah.
That you can't have a pet, but you can also request that you have to take out pet insurance.
Yeah.
Which is what we're looking to do here at Hamilton Fraser. That pet insurance will cover the damage, not deposit. Obviously, when you have deposit disputes, there's obviously deposit disputes with regard to scratches and damage and cover. The biggest deposit dispute that you have, Richard, is cleaning, actually, and it is wear and tear, which is about 17%. Yeah. Landlords must join a redress scheme with Ombudsman. So obviously we run the property redress scheme. So let's say you don't use a letting agent, and you manage your own properties, you'd still have to belong to a redress scheme.
Yep.
So I'm paying you 38% of my income every month, which is my most. The government is saying, well, you landlords need to be more professional. There's an argument. And obviously, the NOLA do training, there's accredited training, and obviously I do lots of education training all the time, because landlords never stop learning all the time. But if I've got a problem, let's say poor management, you didn't communicate, you are going to have an issue with repairs where landlords don't do repairs. Now, I can write to you, you have a complaints procedure.
Yep.
And if you ignore me, then I go to a redress scheme, and then what we try and do is early resolution and mediation, like we do with letting agents. So I think that can only be good.
It is, and it's another good reason why you've got really good records.
You have to have the paper trail.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's the redress scheme. Yeah. Someone say, well, what did you do? How did you do that? You've asked to get access, and the tenants ignored you. Absolutely. You want to do your gas safety.
Well, in our system, in the tenant record, we can record notes, text messages, emails. I record everything.
Yeah.
If they send me a text, I'll put it in, and then if ever there's a dispute.
Do you have WhatsApp groups with your tenants or not? Some landlords do that.
Yeah, not really. I get text messages from tenants. If they have an issue, they'll text me.
Yeah.
If it's really urgent, they'll call me. If the water's coming through the ceiling, they're not.
What's the worst call that you've ever had from a tenant?
Water through the ceiling. I think so. I think once when it was that top floor flat, actually, it was a different tenant, but the water had been building up behind the sink, and the tenant hadn't noticed it or reported it, and then all the weight of the water had been gathering under the kitchen units, and the whole roof came down under
insurance claim. I've had a fire.
Oh yeah, that's recent.
Yeah. Horrible. Yeah. And also, the government's plan is to halve the amount of non-decent homes in the private rental sector. Yeah. Believe it or not, Richard, there's 21% of properties out there in the private rental sector are not deemed as decent standard, which is actually worse than the social sector, which I was really surprised about. Yeah. So you learn something new every day, and obviously homeowners as well.
Yeah.
So the key takeaways, like we're saying, is obviously the property portal. There's going to be more compliance. You get a unique property number. EPC changes. Let's talk about EPC changes. So, do you have to do some work with your properties?
I've got a couple that are definitely under, and I mean, this is a good example actually, because I'm trying to figure out what to do. I've got a property. I need 4 new sash windows.
Right.
It's in a conservation area.
Oh, wow.
And to get new ones.
Where's that?
It's in London.
Right.
In Richmond. 17,000 quid to replace the windows. but I could have them refurbished for about 8. So it's still a lot of money. But I'm actually thinking to, and I want to.
You've got central heating in there.
Yeah, it's got central heating, but it's very drafty and it gets condensation.
And what is it an E or something?
It's a D, I think. It's a D. And I know if I replace the windows, it'll get through. So,
right.
But I'm now thinking
it's a cost, though.
It's a cost, but I've actually accumulated the money to do it, and I want to do it as a great tenant, and I want to do it.
But it adds value to the property.
It adds value to the property, but I'm also thinking, if the government enforces this, are there going to be grants available, or are they just expecting?
So my view with the EPCs, and again, this is a challenge, and this is, and we're going to talk about, and I want to talk about Section 21 because I think a lot of people are going to ask questions and stuff. But with regard to the questions, what I would suggest and really would encourage you guys to do is look at doing. So we've had a couple of questions that have come through now, and I'll do them right at the end. But I would really recommend that anyone who wants to do questions, we're going to show. We'll do the email address at the end, and you'll pick them up within 24 hours.
Yeah.
You've got
the rest of the week allocated.
Well, exactly. You've got a wealth of knowledge, which is really important.
Yeah.
But my view on the EPCs is the Renters Reform Bill is going to come through first. The EPC, they say that they want this to be enforced and happen by 2025. I can't see that happening. That's my honest view. And then, of course, there are some grants out there. So if there's properties that doesn't have central heating, okay, you can get free central heating grants. If your tenant's on some sort of benefit, so it could be a family on child benefit, you can still get that as landlords. I would say look at that.
But only on the benefit.
Only the benefit, or if they're under 32k a year.
Okay.
So it depends what councils that have signed up to, they're called flexi schemes.
Yeah.
So you need to look at that. I think that the EPC changes, Section 24, Section 21, the mortgage rates, it is a step too far for some of those landlords. You've got some landlords that will look at their portfolio, look at their tracker rates and think, actually, that property there in Peabody Road, it's not making money. I'm going to get rid. Look, we've had landlords have had capital appreciation. So I think that's something good. But I think my gut reaction is on EPCs. I think it will be pushed back. But it can be really, really expensive. And I think the bigger landlords are going to be geared up to be able to deal with those.
Well, also
retrofit as well.
Yeah, but what happens with a Grade 1 building? You know what you're supposed to do there. You can't put double glazing.
Well, you can't. And of course, you've also got. You've got stone walls and how can you cover it? It's going to be quite. So I think there'll be exemptions. There has to be exemptions. But of course, when you don't get the clear information from the government, I really say this to landlords all the time: please don't panic. It may be you think it needs a little bit of work. I'll do that, but I won't do all the work. Just do it gradually. But it's cash flow, isn't it? At the end of the day, which is important.
And one thing I'd just say is that all this is leading to going digital, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Well, no, don't forget your tax returns are digital.
Yeah, everything's gone digital. And the landlords we speak to are, a lot of them are on spreadsheets, but a lot of them still have a little filing cabinet, papers.
I know. And the old school landlords.
And they've been doing that, and that's fine. But they're now thinking about, okay, I've got to go digital at some point. So,
but I think for a lot of landlords, if you think a lot of landlords, and you were at the show last week, and it was packed, and and there's landlords that have been landlords for 15, 20, 30 years like yourself. You get it because you've been in Silicon Valley for 9 years. I could just about send an email, right? But it can be daunting.
It can be,
And I think keep it simple, stupid, KISS is really important. And saving yourself time. I think the hardest thing is if you've got a portfolio of 5, 10 properties, you think about all the expiry dates of things that happen. Yes, we have a problem with enforcement, but in your everyday life, in your work, your family, this, that, whatever, you forget stuff.
You do.
So that's why you need pop-ups and you need a really good.
What we're also seeing is that the older land, because to build up a big portfolio, you're going to be older because it takes time to do it. And they're thinking about the next generation.
Yes.
So, it's all right building a spreadsheet or a system, but the trouble is only you know where everything is.
So you need to share it. If you're going to, especially with your family, if you can try and get them involved.
And a lot of bigger landlords, they have, husband and wife or a family, or maybe they've got 1 or 2 helpers or even virtual assistants we're seeing now. And if you can give everyone access to a system, then it makes.
Yeah, no, definitely. What I want to talk about now, which is really important, we touched on referencing. Getting a guarantor, a homeowner. I'm a guarantor for my sister, Mano, and I'm a homeowner, and otherwise she wouldn't be able to rent a property. And I think, obviously, in this day and age, landlords can ask for guarantors, quite rightly, ideally, a homeowner. with regard to referencing, and obviously referencing the kid, of course you can get a rent guarantee policy to cover you, especially in the cost of living crisis. Tell me how you do the referencing and what this can help.
So this goes into what I was saying about us trying to create a community and giving out free resources to help other landlords based on our own experiences.
Yeah.
And what I found is that when the rules change or the laws change and you can't charge tenants anymore for
tenant fee ban. Yeah.
So as everyone knows, it's about 20, 25 quid to do a proper reference on the tenants.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, before you do that, let's create a form to send to the tenant, since we've got all these tenants that want
to. It's a pre-application.
It's like a pre-application form. So we create, and it's amazing what you find out just by asking the right questions.
Right. Yeah.
So what I do now is I send this to my prospective tenants, ask them a load of questions.
Yes.
They fill it in, and then based on that, I then run the credit checks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're giving this away free today. You can download it. That button you can't click on the screen because it's just a screenshot. But if you go onto our blog site, I put on the top right-hand side, we have a really great blog on our website.
Yeah.
But to make it even easier today, we put a little QR code on there. Yeah. So if you take your camera and you hold it over the QR code.
Right, you can do that now.
You can do that right now. It should take you straight to the link.
Right, okay.
And then you put in your email and we'll send you that form through.
Right, brilliant. No, it's and you know what? I think landlords, I think you should do this. I'll tell you why, because I'm sure, so some of you guys might be using open rent or you might be using a let own. I mean, if it's let own, historically, a landlord will go to a letting agent for let only because they think they're going to find better tenants. Yeah. And they do obviously the deregulation, the deposit agreement, all that type of stuff. I think now, because you're getting so many tenants coming through, pre-qualification is more important. And you need to save yourself time on the phone and checking up and all that stuff. So, yeah, download that. That makes total sense.
If your tenant's going to be in there for 4.5 years.
Of course.
You want to make sure you get the right one in. Because in my experience, if you've got a big portfolio, one bad tenant takes all your time and all your effort to sort out.
Well, it's time, effort, emotional stress, as well as hitting you in the pocket, of course. Yeah, exactly. And of course, speaking to a previous landlord, this is quite, I've done obviously hundreds of talks to talk about how to avoid a bad tenant. And, there's all different types of, you can classify a bad tenant. You've got tenants that fall on bad times. They could, a good tenant doesn't turn into a bad tenant overnight. You've got tenants that go out intentionally to try and defraud landlords. And obviously I highlight that in the programme, the worst type of tenants. And then, of course, you get subletting, you get criminality, you get people and you get tenants that will just bury their head in the sand and they won't speak to you, which happens a lot. But speaking to a previous landlord, how do you qualify the previous landlord? Have you seen the previous tenancy agreement? Have you done a land registry search? Social media is really important now because you can see so much about tenants.
Absolutely.
About where they're working, and LinkedIn and stuff like that. So a really good tool there. I would recommend it. I've got before we go on, I just want to talk about Section 21 because I don't want to forget that because obviously I know all about it because I've been involved in a lot of work I do with the government. So with regard to Section 21, it's called non-fault. So it's been around since the 1988 Housing Act came in. And it's a 2-month notice. It's the form that was drafted in Section 21 this term round. I actually helped draft, I was part of the deregulation working consultation. And a couple of those that came in where it has a 6-month lifespan, use it or lose it or serve it after 4 months. They were actually my ideas. And there was obviously a lot of talk about revenge eviction, which does happen, but it's still quite minute. A lot of landlords use Section 21, even if there's tenants and rent arrears. But now, when Section 21 is abolished, which I reckon will be a couple of years, we're going to have periodic tenancies, which is worrying for a lot of landlords, especially student landlords, because purpose-built landlords, student landlords are having exemptions. Where I believe that if you can prove you're a student landlord, you'll get an exemption as well. The whole point of there being a periodic tenancy is so the tenant has flexibility, but also so that the tenant has security. Well, that's how it's deemed. But actually, we know that the term is 4.4 years. But you can't get rid of Section 21, Richard, unless you strengthen the grounds on Section 8, which again we talked about. At the moment, there's 17 grounds. There's going to be, I think, about 22, 23 grounds. There needs to be a lot more mandatory grounds.
Yep.
So you need to, if you want to move back in the property, you serve a 2-month notice.
Yep.
Section 8 is going to go from 14 days to 28 days. 28 days, 4 weeks.
Okay.
If you want to sell the property, which is also going to be an issue, you have to prove that, because I think there's going to be some landlords that will possibly try it on as well.
Can you use Section 8 if you want to move back into the property, or is it separate?
No. So what you can do, so under ground 1, you can use it, but it's hardly ever ground. At the moment, there's only 2 mandatory grounds. So our team at Landlord Action, we've got 22 staff. We do about 2,000 to 2,500 instructions a year.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm just trying to work out the spreads. It's about 60-40, 60% 8 rent arrears, 40 Section 21. What will happen when Section 21 is abolished, where you can't serve a Section 21, and it normally comes in, the rule change normally comes in April or October when the government bring it in.
Yeah.
It's got to go through Parliament, as we said, as part of the Renters Reform draft bill. But I think what will happen is that you'll get landlords that will panic. So they'll start whacking the Section 21s. And of course, the losers and all that. Yeah. But you're seeing landlords, and of course, tenants are still being told to stay put by the council.
Yes.
Big Achilles heel, which happens all the time. Council's still doing it, should not be doing it. And then, of course, a big grey area, a big worry is antisocial behaviour. We saw a lot of that in COVID. Landlords, if you want to go under Section 8 doing antisocial behaviour, it's a discretion again, a weaker ground.
Right.
And then, of course, you've got to get witness statements from other people in the HMO who are scared of that tenant.
Well, Section 21, you don't need that, because you can just...
And so it's called on call. So that Section 21 was a 2-month. One other question that someone just put through, and I'll explain what... do you want to explain what Section 24 is? Someone's just asked him.
Yes, Section 24 is if you own properties in your own name, then you used to be able to offset your mortgage interest against your profit. So basically, if your rent was £1,000 and your mortgage was £600, you make £400 profit, and you pay tax on the £400. The rules change, and you now pay tax on the whole lot, the whole £1,000.
You pay your tax on your turnover, not your profit.
Yes. There is an allowance, but you still end up paying way more tax.
And that came in over 4 years, 2017.
Yes, it did. So lots of landlords are moving their properties into a limited company.
Yes.
We've got a webinar coming up on that, by the way, as well. Just to
good, yes.
That was really, really popular. So that's the way around it. So if you move it into a limited company, you can then offset your mortgage payments.
Good stuff.
Like you used to.
Lovely. And in more detailed questions, as I said, at the end of this webinar, we're going to give you Richard's email address, and you can bombard him with loads of questions. And like I said, we get back to you. Do you want to explain about the DIY systems that landlords can use?
Yeah, I mean, this is really going back to what I was saying before. And I speak to landlords every day, and they call up. They want to go digital, and then I ask them about how they're doing it today. What is the system you're using? What is it you want to get out of a new system? And that always helps us with our roadmap of what we're looking to build. But basically, this is what happens. You end up with a spreadsheet. Then with all these changes, you start creating a database to keep better tenant records. Then maybe you've got an accounting software package like Xero or QuickBooks that you're trying to use as well, which isn't really designed for landlords, but you can sort of use it. Then you have a task management system to remember all your compliance. And the trouble is that, your spreadsheet doesn't talk to your database, and your file storage doesn't talk to your accounting software, and so on. So you end up updating 4 or 5 different systems to try and keep track of all this stuff. There's no mobile access in a lot of cases, because you can't really necessarily get on your mobile to some of this stuff. And one of the worst things we find is, especially if it's a husband and wife team or a family member, one person spends the day doing all the updates on the spreadsheet.
Yes.
And then the other family member comes in and updates the wrong version. And then you're all out of sync, and you have to spend all. So basically, with the emergence of cloud, this is the opportunity I saw for Alphaletz. And this is what.
And how long did it take you to build the platform?
Years. I mean, we've been around 3.5 years now. I thought we could build something in 6 months. It actually took 2 years to get.
And you're a Silicon Valley expert.
Yeah. It took a long time.
Wow.
Because once you get into it, there's
always a change in the roadmap.
There's a change in it, but you're also working really hard to keep the user experience really simple. That's the hard bit. But the back end is very complex. It's very powerful. There's all these algorithms and integrations and stuff. But from a user experience, it's got to be simple.
And it always costs loads more to do, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
We've had a lot of IT programs that have cost us fortunes. So, I mean, actually, with regard to your system, how easy is it for landlords when they do their tax return?
It's easy. I mean, I spoke to my accountant because I use an accountant. This is what our system looks like.
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's very clear, very simple. We put the integrated task management system right in the middle to remind you about all this compliance stuff.
Yeah.
And then your rents and expenses and so on. You can see your arrears down on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
But on the account side, what I do, and a lot of landlords I speak to, is they'll produce a report at the end of the year,
right,
with all their income and expenses, and give that to. I spoke to my accountant. I said, "What format do you want this data in?" And she told me, we designed our reports in that format. That alone.
When you saw your accountant, did you take secure call with you?
Yeah, I should have done.
Yes, of course.
But I mean, the point is that saved me money as well, because where the accountant used to spend hours and hours,
You've done all the work.
I've done all the work for them.
Right,
so then and potentially I could probably even do the tax return myself.
Yeah.
But I like an accountant to do it.
Yeah, cool.
Because I just want to.
They got indemnity as well.
They got indemnity. I want to make sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's really
got
cool.
enough to worry about.
So it's a really easy user experience, a bit easy on the desktop.
Yeah, and it integrates with the bank, so you don't have to upload spreadsheets or try and double entry. You just pull it straight.
And do you want to explain what open banking is?
Yeah, that's
because I think I know what it is, but I think landlords don't really know what it is. Yeah.
So I'm not sure when this came in. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, when there was a new standard where all banks had to open up their systems to integrations. And this was something I think the government actually forced it through. Now it's not just the UK, but it's happening globally. And what it allows you to do is integrate systems to your bank. And you might see this on things like personal finance apps, all sorts of stuff where you can connect now. So we integrated Alphaletz with the bank. So now what you do is you click, there's a little button on the left-hand side that says bank accounts. You click on that, you select your bank from a drop-down, and we connect to over 11,000 different banks worldwide. It's unbelievable. And you just find the bank that you want, and then it takes you to your bank page. You log in as if you're logging into your normal account. And then, hey presto, all the transactions.
And how many landlords have you got? Or
I actually don't know. There's thousands. I mean, our landlords vary from one or two properties right through to hundreds.
Wow.
So it's quite a range.
No, brilliant, good stuff. So So this is another free pack to you.
It is.
Yeah. So explain what this is, Richard.
Yeah. So this has actually been one of our most popular downloads, and we call it the Welcome Pack. So this is about setting expectations with your tenant, because in my experience, when tenancies go wrong, they start with something quite small and then they escalate. And
a lot of it's down to communication.
It is, and it can be something like changing a light bulb.
Yeah.
They expect to run around, but so if you tell them that that's their responsibility.
But I think on that point, which is really important, when you are, I think, on the viewing, the sign up, it's all nice. The relationship's great.
Yeah.
I think landlords should spend the time, especially when you get tenants that are moving in, or a young couple or students or whatever. I think you need to go round with regard to the white goods, and obviously talking about the meter readings, small things like that. That's really important to set the tone, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, that's exactly what this does. So in there's space where it tells them where the stopcock is, right? So it tells them, where the gas meter is and the electric meter.
Good.
It tells them where the local, you can put it in, but it tells them where the local amenities are. Where's the supermarket? And it says, if this breaks, then this is what you should do.
Brilliant. A how-to guide.
This is who to contact. Right. Just some basic stuff. I mean, it took us weeks to get this right.
But it makes the landlord's life easier.
It makes it really easy. It's completely free to everyone on the call.
Okay.
Again, use the QR code. It'll take you straight to the site.
Yeah.
Put in your email address and we'll send that through to you.
Okay, so we'll leave that up for a short time. So tell me, as a landlord, you've been a landlord for 30 years, Richard. What's the most enjoyable part of being a landlord?
Well, I mean, I do have some.
Besides going on loads of holidays.
Well, to be honest, I think it's the freedom side for me. I mean, thanks to my properties, it allowed me to do Alphaletz, because I was able to step out of the sort of corporate world and my sort of regular job, and it gave me the freedom to do different things. And that for me has always been the dream for a landlord.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed it along the way. I've got some great tenant relationships now. It's really great when tenants really appreciate living there, and you get that feedback.
And you don't hear good landlord stories. I mean, I remember on Landlord Zone during COVID, I got pelted actually on. You know what I do? I stand up for landlords. Been doing that for years, and I set up a section with Nigel Lewis, our editor, called Landlord Hero.
Yeah.
And we heard some great stories of landlords doing free shopping, free rent periods, great stuff like that.
About that so much.
And then, of course, and to be honest, I was being contacted during, I mean, COVID was a really, really difficult time. It feels like a lifetime ago. And I was being contacted by landlords, and I struggled in the first lockdown, mentally. I really did. I'm at home stuck in here with my kids. I want to be out.
That's right,
And I was doing webinars like this every single day, more or less, just me. But I heard some amazing stories. But I also saw landlords that were taking advantage. Oh, my tenant hasn't paid, I'm going to evict them. And I think the eviction ban was quite a good thing to happen in the grand scheme of things, because we didn't obviously have a vaccine at the time, did we?
Well, I had some story. I mean, I had some students who left immediately. You know,
they just left. They
closed the university.
Yes, and that was a massive.
They had to go.
Foreign nationals that were going home.
Yeah. And actually, to be fair, they offered to keep paying. They just wanted a discount.
Right.
And I said, I thought it was an amazing offer.
Of course it was.
They could have just completely.
And of course, a lot of the guarantors, the parents, were on the hook, weren't they?
They were. So I mean,
I think it was about being reasonable and looking at. But I did have some landlords that were really unreasonable.
Yeah.
And then I saw a lot of tenants that were taking the biscuit, taking advantage of the situation. Oh, I'm not getting furloughed, but they were still getting paid. Yeah. Sitting at home.
Yes.
You know. But anyway, download that QR code, which is important. And then, of course, So you've got a new offer.
So we have. So this is what the system looked like. You can see it's a desktop. So anywhere you can get on an internet browser, you can get in the system. Okay? And we have a mobile app. Okay, that's all syncs up together. But today I'm going to announce something brand new, and that is that we have a free version. And the free version today is quite limited. You can just get on and you can load up one property to try it out. I'm extending that to 3 properties, and I'm also going to throw in free open banking. That is an industry first. I don't think anyone else has done that.
Right.
So, because there's so much that we get charged every time you make a connection, but I'm giving it away free. Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to give that away free.
Feeling generous.
I'm feeling generous because what I really want people to do is once they get on, they're going to love the system. And then you should expand the portfolio. I mean, you can put 10 properties on with more bank accounts if you have, credit cards and more banks and so on. And you can do that for just £7 a month. Right. And then you can expand from there as well. So, I want people to get on, try it. A lot of people say one property is great, but I've got an HMO, so I want to try it and I want to see the bank. So we're going to give that away. Now, that is not going to be live for a couple of days, okay? So we're just finishing off the last bits of it. But if you log in today and set up a free account, when it becomes live in a couple of days, you'll automatically be upgraded with the open banking and the extra properties.
A great extra tool, definitely. And here's just some testimonials of people that have used you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole spread. So you've got Tom on the left. He's got 60 properties. Some he manages for other people, actually. So he's almost like a letting agent himself. Right. And then he's got HMOs, he's got single lets, and so on. Teresa in the middle, she's got 50 single lets. She's got loads of terrace houses that she's been buying since she was, university. Yeah. And then Joe on the right is a property developer. So he's got a very interesting story where he takes like commercial buildings
and converts them,
and cinemas and stuff like that, to convert them into blocks of flats.
Yeah.
And he's got now well over 100. Very, very successful. Great.
And as you said, you can have 1 or 2 properties.
I was going to say, I mean, obviously these are the bigger ones, but a lot of these people start with 1 or 2, and that's why we want everyone.
Yeah, definitely. So I've got a couple of questions, but here's your details. This is really important. So Richard J. at Alphaletz.co.uk. Yes. Yeah. So and obviously you've got an advice team and you've got a back end support team as well at Alphaletz. But you can do that. What were so what are the prices again? Just to remind us.
Right. So for up to 3 properties with open banking, it's now going to be completely free.
Right.
Now, as I say, that's not going to kick in for a couple of days, but if you log in and sign up, we'll upgrade you to that free.
Yeah.
We've also lowering our pricing. So for up to 10 properties, it's £10 a month.
Yeah.
Sorry, £7 a month.
Yeah.
10 properties, £7 a month.
Right.
And up to 25 properties, it's £15 a month. That's what it is.
Right.
Okay. And remember, you're probably going to be able to replace if you use Xero or QuickBooks, you potentially might be able to replace that, because when I was using QuickBooks, the thing I used most was the open banking, which we now include, and being able to run reports. And we can do that obviously in our system.
And what can the system do to help landlords be more compliant with the new regulation?
Well, that
deposit scheme.
That is really important, and we put that right in the center of our system. So First of all, you can set up any label. We call it tags. So you can set up a label for a rent review, a gas safety, or EPC, whatever it might be. You can set up, multiple labels for that.
Mm.
So you can put that into the system, and then the system will remind you as these things become, due. The other thing we'll do, though, even if you're not in the system, we'll send you an automated email. So every Monday morning, we'll send you a list of your tasks for the week,
Right?
Even if you're not in the system.
Okay.
So you'll no excuse now for forgetting.
Right. Exactly. And how important is it to have a real robust tenancy agreement?
Oh, I'd say, very important.
Mm.
But not only the agreement, but if you find yourself in a position where you're in a fortunate position where you have to go to court for rent arrears,
yes, of course,
you've got to have everything else that goes with it. You've got to your notes. You've got to show the schedule of the rent. So with one click, you can create a statement of the rent of what was paid and what wasn't paid, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's all the stuff that goes around.
And what about? I think also, which can be a bane of a landlord's life, but obviously they have a responsibility because the tenant's property is their home, and that's how one should be treating it.
Yeah.
Because if they do, then there's a good chance they'll stay there better if the property is looked after and the service of the landlord is up to speed. What about reporting repairs and so forth? How should landlords deal with that?
Yeah, well, the tenant can't report it in the app.
Right.
Now we are looking at that, and I'm in sort of two minds about it, because I know in my own personal experience with the tenant where the water was coming through the roof, he's not going to get on an app and send me a message. He's going to call me straight away.
Yes, of course.
But what we can do in our system is we can record all. So if the tenant sends pictures or notes, we can put that all in the task, so we can record it, all the maintenance stuff. Or you as a user can.
But it's really important that the landlord documents everything.
Absolutely.
They've jumped on it.
All of that is absolutely.
The worst thing to do is a landlord to ignore it.
Yes.
Because worst way, it could get as bad as where the tenant could report you to the environmental health officer.
Well, that's why we also put the ability to add notes, because you can show an email,
right?
But it's all the stuff outside that. What if they've phoned you up, or you've had a text conversation? How do you put that in? So all that now is available in the system.
Yeah. And what advice would you give? So we might have a lot of newbies on here that may be looking to become landlords.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
And it's always advisable to come on webinars like this or go to property shows to get information, because a lot of the time you can get property education for free. You have to pay for it. What advice? What one or two or three bits of advice would you give to a newbie landlord starting out now?
That's a good question. I mean, there's so much to it. I would say, do your research. So I'd probably start with investing nearer to home if you can.
On single lets,
probably. I've got a lot of flats, but I think if I was to do it again, I would probably try and do houses more. The only trouble is houses are typically more expensive to buy. But
then you're in service charges.
You're in service charges. That can be very difficult. They can get out of control fairly quickly. So I start close at hand, close to home. Do a ton of research. And if you're not sure what to buy, go into your local estate agent and just say, what are tenants asking for? If everybody wants a one-bedroom flat, then maybe a one-bedroom flat's the right buy. If it's families and they've got families, then you probably want to look for families.
And what area would you recommend? I mean, look, if you think about now, the London market, you're getting yields of 3%, and it's just everything.
Well, I started out in London, and actually they're still my best properties, but I've had them for 20 years.
Yeah, of course,
but it's too expensive now to buy in London. And also stamp duty. There was no 3% additional stamp duty. The top end was about 5%. Now it's like 12 or whatever it is. So it's gone crazy. So people are moving out of town, and that's fine. There's loads of schemes where you can buy properties without even seeing them. I'd be very, very careful about that. If you're serious, it's your money. Go and check them out. Don't buy off the internet or.
There's a really good company actually called Landlord Sales Agency.
Right.
They're also a partner of Landlords. And they sell tenanted properties from other landlords, but they, below market value.
Right.
But I think, it's reason. I mean, look, buying a property is one of your biggest assets.
It's huge.
Purchases.
Yeah, it is huge. And remember, it's for the long term. So, I honestly don't think property is a get quick.
No,
a lot of people.
It's a long term goal.
It is.
It's a long term goal, and obviously account for your tax.
Yes. Yep. Plan. Yes. You've got to take all that. Do your numbers. Check it out properly.
Get
make
some
sure
really
you
good
really
tax
understand
advice.
it. Think about whether a limited company is the right way to go from the start. Now with Section 24.
Yes, 100%.
And just again, we've got a webinar coming up on that in a couple of weeks. So keep an eye on our website for that.
And I think what we can do is with this recording, there's a lot of people that haven't attended on this recording, but they will get a copy of this recording.
Yeah, great.
We'll do a follow-up email, and maybe what you can do is also put a link in for that webinar for obviously the company formation, which is really important.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, let me see if we've got any. I don't think we've got any more questions. What I would suggest is, obviously, if you do have any more questions about being a landlord or about the platform, being compliant or management or whatever, go and type the email of Richard J.A. at Alphaletz with a Z.co.uk. Follow you on all the socials.
Yes, that's a good point, actually, Paul. We've got loads of videos on YouTube. There's probably about 70 odd now, and it's things like, how to do this and how to do that, and some little short videos on what the dashboard can do for you. And
listen, any platform, any solution that helps a landlord, makes them compliant, saves them money, and being a better landlord. We all need to learn. We all need to get better. We all need to keep learning as well. It is about education, and it's completely changed now from the days of when you gave a tenancy agreement and maybe put a deposit scheme, and that was it. It's completely changed.
I think we have to be more mindful of our income and expenses. I mean, when there was so much fat, when the interest rates were low, and now you've really got to keep an eye on it. You've got to make sure those rents are coming in time. A void can cost you a lot of money. Like, if you forget that the tenancy agreement is ending in 30 days' time.
Or not having conversations with the tenants, so you don't plan to remarket.
And then you assume they're staying and they don't, and then you end up with a month's void.
Yeah.
Well, a month's void is not only going to cost you your month's rent, it's going to cost you your council tax and electricity.
It all adds
and
up.
All this stuff that...
And look, gas, electricity's gone up 66%. Which and I think there's just on council tax, there's for HMO landlords, there's a consultation now going around that HMO landlords should be paying the council tax for the tenants, which is another expense. So, you've got to keep up to, obviously, register and subscribe with Landlord Zone as well for your latest news. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Really enjoyed that.
Take care. Good luck, everyone.